The punch landed before anyone realized a line had been crossed. It was a sharp, ugly sound, the kind that snaps a room awake, and for a heartbeat the hallway froze. Lockers hummed with the echo. Shoes stopped squeaking. Breath caught in throats. The new girl stood there with her backpack sliding off one shoulder, her cheek already warming, eyes steady in a way that didn't match what had just happened. Everyone expected her to fold. What no one expected was that this moment would end something that had been going on far longer than a single shove in a crowded hallway. She had arrived 3 weeks earlier with a bus ticket crease still in her pocket and a history she didn't announce. New schools always felt like airports to her, loud and temporary, people passing through without learning names. She kept her head down, learned the rhythm of bells, mapped the quiet corners. She didn't push back when shoulders brushed too hard. She didn't answer when whispers followed. She told herself that staying invisible was a kind of safety. She had done that before and survived. The bully had been there since middle school, growing into his shadow like a habit no one bothered to break. He filled hallways with laughter that cut, ruled lunch tables with stories about who belonged and who didn't. Teachers knew his name and sighed when they said it. Students learned to move when he walked by, like whether you couldn't stop. He wasn't always loud. Sometimes the power came from the way he leaned, how he waited for people to step aside. He enjoyed the pause before compliance, the moment when eyes flicked down. That morning the hallway was a bottleneck, students bunching near a door that stuck when it rained. The new girl stood still because there was nowhere to go. She had her schedule folded in her hand, her mind on the next class, and she didn't notice him until he was already there. He said something to her back. She didn't hear or pretended not to. When she didn't move, the pause stretched, and something in him snapped, maybe the fear that the old magic didn't work anymore. His fist came out fast and careless, a punctuation mark he'd used before. The silence afterward was heavy, but not empty. It was full of watching. Full of old memories that crowded the new girl's chest. She had been smaller once, pushed against a fence, told to know her place. She had learned then that pain could turn you into a smaller version of yourself if you let it. She had learned something else too, in a place where sweat and discipline smelled the same. She had learned how to stand. Her counterstrike was not loud. It didn't look like what movies promise. It was a step, a turn, a clean motion born of hours she never talked about. It was choosing not to collapse into the role assigned. The bully staggered, surprised more than hurt, the wind knocked out of a story he'd been telling for years. He didn't fall, but he wasn't standing tall either. The hallway exhaled. Adults arrived then, voices layered with urgency. Hands pointed. Phones came out. The new girl felt the heat of attention she had tried to avoid. She also felt something steadier, like a knot loosening. She hadn't planned to make a statement. She had only refused to disappear. Detention became suspension, meetings became murmurs. The story bent as it traveled. Some said she attacked first. Others said she was trained. A few said the bully finally met his match. The truth sat quietly between all of it, patient and unglamorous. The school wanted calm restored, routines smoothed over. Consequences were assigned with equal weight, as if balance could be achieved by symmetry alone. At home that evening, the new girl sat on the edge of her bed and pressed ice against her cheek. The room was bare, the kind of place still waiting to be lived in. Her guardian watched from the doorway, worry-ridden in the lines that life had etched there early. They didn't scold. They asked if she was okay. She nodded and then shook her head, both answers true. She slept badly, dreaming of hallways that never ended. The next day she expected whispers to sharpen, stares to cut. Instead, something softer happened. A girl she had never spoken to offered a seat. A boy nodded as he passed. These were small things, almost invisible, but they stacked up. Power shifts rarely announce themselves. They seep. The bully returned too, quieter, eyes darting like someone checking exits. He carried the weight of public surprise, of being seen in a way he hadn't chosen. At lunch he sat at the edge of his usual table. The jokes were louder than they needed to be. He laughed at the wrong moments. His world had tilted, and he didn't know how to straighten it. Weeks passed. The new girl kept her routines. She joined a club because the room smelled like sawdust and possibility. She ran after school until her breath burned and the burn felt honest. People learned her name. They learned that she listened. She learned which teachers noticed effort and which pretended not to. She learned that being visible did not have to mean being exposed. One afternoon, the bully found himself in the counselor's office, staring at a poster about choices. He had been sent there more times than he could count, but this felt different. The counselor didn't lecture. She asked about home, about the first time he learned that taking space meant giving it back. He didn't answer at first. Silence had always been a weapon for him too. But silence, it turns out, can be a mirror. He thought about the moment in the hallway, the surprise that flooded him, the way the crowd had leaned in. He thought about how it felt to be the story instead of the storyteller. He left the office without a solution, but with a crack where one might grow. The school organized an assembly about respect, the kind that students usually tune out. This time the room was different. The new girl sat near the back, hands folded, heart steady. She didn't need the stage. She had already done the work she needed to do. When the speaker talked about strength not being loud, she felt seen in a way that didn't require applause. The bully sat too, shoulders hunched, listening harder than he would admit. He didn't transform overnight. Redemption rarely arrives like that. It comes in smaller, uncomfortable pieces. It comes when you notice the cost of your habits. It comes when you realize fear has been doing your talking. Months later, there was another crowded hallway, another stuck door. Someone bumped into the new girl, apologized quickly, moved on. The bully stood nearby, watched the flow, and stepped aside without thinking about it. No one clapped. No one noticed. That was the point. At the end of the year, the new girl ran a race she hadn't planned to enter. She felt the crowd as a warm hum instead of a threat. She crossed the finish line tired and smiling, proud of a body that had learned new stories. Her guardian cried in the stands, the good kind of tears. The bully volunteered for a project that required patience, the kind that didn't reward you with laughs. He discovered he was good at explaining things, at helping someone else feel less lost. He still stumbled. He still felt the pull of old shortcuts. But he had learned that respect was lighter to carry than control. On the last day before summer, the hallway buzzed with relief. Lockers slammed like punctuation marks at the end of a long sentence. The new girl paused where it had all begun. She didn't linger. She didn't need to. The place had shrunk to its proper size. This story isn't about winning a fight. It's about refusing a role you never auditioned for. It's about the quiet power of standing your ground without becoming the thing that hurt you. It's about how one counterstrike, when guided by self-respect instead of rage, can end a cycle that feels unbreakable. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of a moment when you chose yourself, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because they mirror the choices we face every day. Stay strong, stay kind, and remember that the most powerful change often begins with a single step that says enough is enough.